Okay. So thank you, Joe, for your beautiful film, and thank you for asking me to ask you some questions. Bonnington gave me the feeling of belonging for the first time since I moved to London, and it had been 10 years before I joined. So thank you, everyone, for making Bonnington what it is, and thank you, Joe. It means a lot to me. So I want to ask you some questions both about the content of your film and also your artistic decisions and how this film sits within your practice as an artist and as a cook. And my first question is, what triggered you to shoot the film? And I love the absurdity that the film is titled "What's the Beef with Bonnington?" in a vegan vegetarian cafe, and there's no beef here. But since I joined the collective, we have been very much occupied with the threat of losing our lease. So, did the idea of filming Bonnington come from the threat of losing it, and do you see this as an archive?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So yeah, like for a few years, it's kind of gone on where we don't have the cafe doesn't have a lease, and it's not it's not registered as a business, and so the Bonnington Centre were pointing out about they wanted to have a new lease and sort of they wanted to come up with a new structure, sort of new way of running the cafe being run, and yeah, so that was the moment that I thought about doing this film because yeah, it's not a registered business, and it just got me thinking about how it's kind of organically developed over. The cafe comes from squatting time, and how it's kind of organically developed over since that time, and it's a bit elusive. Like it's not. Somebody might come here and might think it's a bit shambolic or a bit hippie-ish or a bit kind of unprofessional. So I thought it'd be interesting to sort of articulate it in some way in whatever, like, well, I make films, so then I just thought but I'm not like a typical documentary filmmaker, so I had a sort of particular approach.
Yeah, it's not a journalistic way of documenting it, but you capture the essence of it for sure.
Kind of, yeah.
So, at least emotionally, I think you capture it really well. Are you narrating the story for us as Joseph Walsh, or did you create a narrator character? And who do you see as the main subject of the film?
Yeah, so the me is the bit where I'm talking about dyslexia, and the some of the bits in the kitchen. But then there's this voice that's ongoing, this narrative voice, and I was thinking a bit about these Hollywood voices, this kind of male low voice you get of a guy and his like inner psyche, and him sort of on a mission to like in a city, in a hard city, and he's got to find his way, that kind of thing, and that voice is always quite, in Hollywood films, it's quite vague and it's quite elusive. So I kind of wanted to work with that, and this man's voice is kind of like being put through the collective and kind of being challenged and going through, and then I sort of saw it as that he eventually gets sort of dispersed, and then he's sort of like described through cooking and the physics of cooking and the sort of rules, a bit of the rules and regulations and the meetings and stuff. So yeah, and then the main character I think is the building. So I was really trying to just sort of keep emphasising that everything's happening within this building, so the drama happens in it. So I actually think the main character is this place,
The building itself.
the building itself, and this history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bonnington as the building with its cheap rent gave us a space for all this imperfectionism to happen, and it allowed our pace and our rhythms to unfold in a way. And there's a lot of emphasis in your film on imperfection that this space allows, like how you're cutting the pumpkin, how you're peeling the pumpkin at the beginning, and Rochelle speaking about cooks not being cooks. And do you see this imperfection as a resistance to the norms? And
Yeah, because I mean we talked about this already, and I was talking about if you know, I talk about dyslexia in the film, but I think people can have all kinds of sort of things wrong with them, but they never sort of say it, or it's never really sort of overt, or it's never, you can't really kind of get help for it unless you're really clearly, you know, like ill, or you've really got extreme mental health problems, and then you can get help from the state. So I was kind of thinking of it in that way of like, in this place it's quite open that you can be sort of a bit dyslexic and sort of not do things quite right, and
yeah.
I've sort of managed to place in my own sort of dyslexic way. So I think it is a sort of resistance in that way, I think.
Yeah, and it's very rare that you would get the opportunity to become an employee, like in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, and I'm not a trained chef.
I see this as an essay film, and maybe a little bit of a dyslexic one. And from my personal experience as an immigrant, I sometimes miss the politics of dancing around words myself, and but there's also the aspect of why we struggled with the tenancy was not that because we were not native speakers, but also the language of law was very impenetrable. And you speak about language in terms of employability as well in the film. And do you feel that Bonnington allows you to articulate yourself in more creative ways than some other situations? Or does it give you space to express yourself better?
Yeah, I think again going back to that, I think like getting to manage a day. I didn't quite get the question. Like you kind of jumped from one.
It's about language being allowed in the structure of the space, I think, and how it's being run. Like, do you feel, because you speak about your dyslexia and how people gave you space to take notes and people listen to you, and I had the same experience of people listening to me patiently. I would add to that. I think maybe some situations where I do have to be quite articulate, I might have problems with being employed, so it did open up that space, like I said in the film. I think there's a sort of I think with here what I really noticed, it's like a sort of I think because everyone's it's only a couple of English people, there's a sort of, it feels like a construction, like the language is more like a construction, and it's more can be played with, and that opens up space for me, I think. And so I think when we had this problem with the lease being renewed and then being up against laws, we were really kind of it suddenly became apparent this thing of like
the language of law and the way that it's spoken and the sort of authority it can have. We all sort of crumbled, and we all kind of couldn't cope, and so then it became really apparent in that situation. Yeah.
Yeah, apart from verbal language, I also wanted to speak about the soundtrack, because you have a very soft gaze with the camera, but the soundtrack adds a very dynamic tone to it. And I was curious if you briefed David about the sound.
Oh, well, David's here. Yeah, so it was like we were talking about a lot about the being haunted and the haunting of the building. So I gave him some sound recordings of like kitchen sounds, and but there's a lot of and then also this piano which is upstairs, and yeah, so you developed with that. But the piano is, I don't know what the word is. It the acoustic, when you get the acoustics of the room from the piano. Is it the timbre?
There's a resonance.
Yeah, there's a resonance
Yeah.
of that piano in this particular building.
Yeah. So you gave me those recordings of the piano that were from here.
Yeah.
And then of course I had something, and doors squeaking, and then all of the cooking sounds, frying and washing, stuff like that. So it was really like a response to those materials that we talked about, and trying to kind of create some dynamics with them.
And I think it really worked well, because unless, like, if the sound wasn't there, you wouldn't really understand how hectic the kitchen is when you're working there. I think it would have been too soft, maybe, the visuals, and the sound actually keeps it really upbeat. And when you're working in the kitchen, it feels really upbeat. You don't have a second to drink water sometimes.
Yeah, so what, a building suspense sound?
Yeah.
Of like reaching the opening of the restaurant,
Yeah. I think it worked really well. And when you say the haunted, like the sounds of haunted, is it the history of this space as a squat?
Yes, I think it's like something in particular that Rachel said, that she said that it's right at the beginning of the film about she feels when she works there's like a spirit here. So I kind of, then it really got me thinking about how we're all haunted by what this building is and the history of this building and the period of squatting, and so how that's how you're what's going on there.
In a positive way, sorry to in a positive way.
Well, I don't think being haunted is negative. And then you said something about that you said when you feel like you've been a bit wrong in the kitchen, there's something telling you.
If I pay somebody not enough on a day that was really busy, or something like that, if I do something wrong or I shout at somebody, it's just like, even it starts here when I'm sitting after the shift is done. I start to feel really wrong and really aware of what I've done. Whereas, in my normal life situation, I go for years without realizing what I've done wrong. But there is something special here.
So it's the haunted building.
Should we open it to everybody?
And you didn't include all the chefs or all the interviews like this one. And how did you select? How did you make the final selection? What did you decide to leave out?
Yeah, it's just really difficult. It's like really because I'm not a documentary filmmaker. It's like a huge undertaking to film everybody and then try and include everybody. I found it impossible. But I think I've got more footage that I haven't used yet, so I'm going to do another edit. But I would like to get that sort of thing of like how the cooks use the kitchen in different ways. in their own sort of particular way, and the little details.
So it will
makes
continue as a
Yeah,
new
it's
episode.
so complicated to edit that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
so
sure.
it's developing.
And
Sorry,
Sure.
maybe you could do a series.
episodes.
Episodes, yes.
Yeah.
For Netflix.
Yeah.
Yes.
Series.
But
Yeah.
let's ask people
Yeah,
what
yeah,
they think.
yeah.
You know,
I
because
had one final
Yeah.
question about where this sits with your art practice, where this film is
Yeah. So,
sitting in the.
so all
But
the-
then we can also open
okay.
it to
So
questions.
all the films that I've been working on, often it has a character in it, and that character gets described by objects and environments, and then those objects and environments come to describe how all the people describes that character and how it's connected to other characters in the film. So it's like so in this case of this film, it's about a protagonist, and it's suddenly being described in this sort of constellation of things, of like the building, the history, and the collective. Yeah.
And you usually work with film for people who do not know, or
Oh yeah.
your practice.
Yeah, normally, yeah. I mainly do.
So I actually should have said you could jump in anytime. I'm sorry, but if you have questions
Yeah.
to Joe.
Or comments.
Or comments, or
I
like
think
just
we're
the
more
topics.
interested in comments, feedback, how you know, how did you see it?
One was that I actually thought was a beautiful portrayal of actually the experience that is Bonnington, and I thought it was the visuals were absolutely very bright, and I just actually enjoyed the whole time. So, but I think I was going to just ask in regards to that, because you did use the word haunted, and so I was quite interested with that. Yours was haunted, and there was the sort of like two of spirit, and I tend to think that mine is in regards to looking at the actual film, but the experience that I've had here is more that I probably would say it was the spirit that's actually what I think is almost like the bloodline or the energy within the Bonnington that you actually can feel the pulse of it. That's actually how you all interrelate. Is actually what I felt was portrayed in that. So I think well done. It's amazing. Thank you very much. Privilege to come and watch it.
It's a nice description.
Thank you.
Yeah, just
Sophie?
it felt like it was a very turbulent period of time at the Bonnington, and you sort of convey it as something quite beautiful and peaceful and inspiring. And is that the way?
Yeah.
Is that your answer to
Yeah,
the
definitely.
problem?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think my response to all of that situation is just, to try and describe something, just describe it quite interestingly and quite well, how it's been functioning. So whatever the future of this cafe, it might give a sort of, there's something recorded describing it a bit.
So it's like a step further. You're not in the sort of a first reaction or the.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great how it's a celebration of the Bonnington, and it's not like he said that and she said that and this kind of thing. It's just a celebration of the whole place.
And of the calendar.
Yeah.
Everyone,
Yes.
There's a lot of
likes
humour
it.
in the film.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really
And it all
amazing.
kind of tied up to this final acknowledgement of dyslexia. You're saying, what was this? Carrot, cabbage. Say it again. Say it again.
Yeah.
Was it actually? Did you intend it to be humorous? Because it was it was very charming, and there were a bit we laughed at quite a lot of it, and I was wondering actually, did you feel that?
No, I don't sort of, because I was filming everybody. I told them to just be themselves. So.
But
I wasn't asking them to do comedy moments. I wasn't asking them to do like slapstick.
No, I know, but I mean when you put it together, like when you edited it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I am drawn to a bit of giggle.
But may I say something? It was very difficult because Joe started that film when the problem started with Bonnington, which we just got in a shock because we never expected things to go that way, and it was like we were in. And so when you see me speaking about like capitalism and socialism, and I'm just like Radio 4 suddenly because I'm so aware. I'm on camera and I'm like, it's all political. We can be chucked out of here. I need to say something that is like, and it comes out really terrible.
Oh no, I
prefer myself in the kitchen. I'm more myself.
I think they were really good. I think those are really good bullet points. But you did say you had that feeling that you felt like you had to.
I had to
present
like,
yourself.
Yeah,
to some
present
kind of
myself
audience,
to
which
the
is really
camera and to maybe people here or the trustees, you know, who kind of decide our future or negotiate our future. And then I much prefer those funny bits, the kind of like in the kitchen with everybody.
Yeah, so going back to that question, Sophie, I think rather than making it too sort of overtly sort of like, no, like really sort of propaganda or something, like describing it.
Yeah, or wanted to really be like telling the whole story. Making people feel how it is, and then they can make their own decision.
It's also very good.
But it's you have to be, I don't know, inspiring.
Well,
I mean, I just
skillful. That's
yeah,
why it's so good.
Exactly,
and
like
it's so light touch.
But it's a very
He's
good
incredibly good at it.
portrayal of intersubjective space and the kind of tacit agreements that are made around communication and misunderstanding when it can work as flow, because actually ideally most people would like to be able to work in that way and don't have that opportunity. So some of the things that you were describing around, you know, communication and dyslexia can be actually extended to quite a lot of people who are really caught up in quite, you know, sort of capitalist environments. You know, it's a kind of ideal that's being presented there, where things, because we're doing it anyway, things are always being negotiated and also they're always being understood, misunderstood. And I think it's very powerful when you see the blackboard and you start to see the building and you're talking about your mother in a very, very deep way about her subjectivity and also her, you know, miscommunicating and communicating at the same time. So it's very potent at that point.
Anybody else? I just want to say something, not directly related, but we are planning to have more events like that maybe in this space. And there is 2 books on the table. We would really appreciate, Joe and everybody who was involved in that project, the whole cafe, if you all left your name, email written very clearly, and a comment, because we want to invite you for more of those kind of events.
Thank you all for.
And there is food there, so let's just chat and talk, or unless somebody wants
Thank
to say
you all for
anything.
Thanks, Joe.
Sorry.